Hi everybody, my name is Madison Brown. I would like to discuss this topic and why I chose it today. It's important to know that I am majoring in the path of addiction studies. By giving this speech, I hope to further develop my social boundaries and confidence levels when discussing events that made me take a 360 in my life for the better. Although some of the events throughout the story may be triggering, I would like to bring your attention to the sore topic of addiction and recovery today. A subject in today's world which is known but not talked about. Not only have we survived through actual epidemics and pandemics, but we're still living in both. It's important to ask ourselves, what are the benefits of awakening people to the ugly faces of addiction in today's world? With this being asked, I would like to call this story My Path of Sobriety in the Final Steps. Who of you have loved somebody struggling with addiction or witnessed it firsthand? Even if you have, it's safe to say you're watching from an outside point of view. No matter how close you are to the individual, for years I would turn to a mirror and ask myself, is this what an addict looks like? The answer was yes. I would now like to paint a picture in your mind of a 14-year-old girl who struggled with everything life had thrown at her. She could get her hands on whatever substances to cope, but she was still functioning. Was this an addict? Fast forward 4 years, at the young age of 18, my savior had become pretty white rocks in a row. The lines of substance seemed to save me. They didn't judge me. They didn't tell me no. I had created a consistent routine in which, one day, it seemed to be falling apart in my hands. I had just been told I wasn't going to graduate and some other sore news that triggered an episode to begin that weekend. Although these emotions were arising, the weekend began like any other, meaning a $200 re-up was about to take place. Now imagine closing your eyes and waking up in the ICU, hooked up to machines, covered in bruises, when the last thing you remember doing was 3.5 grams to yourself. I opened my eyes, I looked to my left, and I saw my dad who lived 8 hours away. Confused, he alerted the doctor that I was awake. While I silently processed the room, the doctor introduced himself as he walked in and asked if I knew why I was there. I said, was I in a car accident? The last thing my brain could remember was driving home from my dad's 2 days prior. Everyone's face dropped as they told me it's been 3 weeks since I'd been put in a medically induced coma from an overdose. They informed me that my body had begun to go into shock while having recurrent seizures till my heart had stopped. My brain didn't know what to think. I had questions of, so if my heart had stopped, was I okay? How was I even alive after 3 overdoses? Did they know what I had been up to all weekend? But none of that seemed to matter. I could only bring myself to say I was sorry. And everyone in the room, including doctors, nurses, and my parents, could all see the hurt in my face. They could see the tired in my eyes, and they knew I needed sleep. I slept for the next 12 hours, till I was awoken by my mother and a woman. The woman introduced herself as the EMT who arrived at the scene when my heart had stopped. Before I could even say I was sorry or thank you, she told me to look at my wrist. Confused, I looked down and saw a colorful beaded bracelet. She began to explain she put it on me before I was stabilized. Here I was at 18 years old with a gratitude I could never repay. I was left with the realization that my whole life was in this woman's hands, and I had her to thank. She made me promise to never put myself in this situation at the age that I was at. But as an addict, I knew I couldn't keep this promise. But here I am, 2 years later, at 20 years old, sober, with a foot in the door to child development and addiction studies, all while seeing that colorful bracelet every morning. The thing about this story is the event that I described is an ongoing stage, a book to be written, so to speak.